everybody, Marty McConnell, the off-grid gecko today, I'm the off-grid gecko all the time, but today in particular, I am super off-grid gecko, sewing off-grid gecko, I guess, because I'm going to be converting some craft paper patterns that I made into a pair of pants, doing something that's basically called a sloper. Alright, so far, most of my sewing has been basic repair work and mending. I don't see anything on the jeans I'm wearing at the moment, but most of my clothes at this point have some kind of stitching done to them for repair work, trying to make them just go as long as they can, and that's really tough with the job that I'm doing right now. So I started considering making my own clothing because the kind of clothes that I need to survive a rigorous environment, and I need them to hold up over time and this and that, run about $50 to $80 a pair. And it's just, when it comes to that, it's kind of cheaper to make the clothes yourself. Plus, in theory, you can make them where they're perfectly fit to you, and they're not just a generic pattern that's never going to fit right on anybody, but it's close enough that, you know, stores can get away with. You just walk in, grab it, and walk out, and you've got clothes. But at this point in the process, I'm still really kind of slow going ahead. If you're following on Instagram, I actually finished one leg of the experimental pant that I was making out of recycled jean material. So I basically cut up a bunch of shredded jeans that were way beyond repair, and I was able to stitch up a leg, and I was originally planning on turning this into a complete pair of pants. I still might, but I'm starting to see that this is going to be more of like a weekend pair of pants, or a around the house pair, or maybe just something to go to sleep in, rather than an actual functional pair of pants that I wear out in the woods. But it does give me an extra garment out of junk that would have otherwise been tossed in the burn pit. Cotton, I've found, is not the most suitable material for long-lasting stuff, especially in an environment when you're working with chemicals. So I've switched my thinking toward polyester, and that's where the problems just kind of start. But if you're going to go through all that trouble to start making your own clothes, they may as well fit right, correct? So I basically I've started doing pattern drafting, and I've created this pattern. I created another one before. These back there. And this pattern was a complete disaster, so that's going in the burn pile. But I learned a lot about creating patterns and sort of like starting to take more measurements and how to take them accurately, so that I can hopefully make a garment that fits. Now, as far as a sloper garment, you don't want to go with an expensive fabric. Like the fabric I'm looking at to eventually start making my clothes with is an OtterTex product. It runs anywhere from $5 to $10 a yard. And it's pretty expensive. It's pretty tough material, but it's not a material that you want to experiment on because of the added expense. So this is some junk leftover fabric from Walmart. It was $1 a yard. I don't even care if it's pink at this point, because this is going to be what I'm going to cut the experimental pattern on. The only things that I'm looking for in my fabric is that it's not stretchy, because the material I'm going to be working with is not stretchy. So if I want to make the pattern, and also the pattern itself is not stretchy, so these will be what I'll use for my muslin cloth, just because it was the cheapest stuff that I could find available locally, and I got 4 yards of this for $4 from Walmart. So that's a pretty heavy piece of fabric from Walmart. And actually, this has a shiny side and a dull side. I think I'm going to go ahead and put the dull side out. I don't know. So one side's kind of satiny and the other side's, it's fabric. It's cheap fabric, so designed for pattern making is my mentality, and I've got enough there that if this time it works out, then I can go ahead and start on maybe an upper sloper for making shirts. Or if it doesn't work out, I've got plenty there, and I can go through the pattern drafting process again, make some alterations, and then move toward a final product. at this point my idea is well enough will work. So I'm going to get started with that. I don't want to cover pattern drafting in detail in this video. If you guys are interested in this kind of stuff, I can try and convey what I've learned on the internet, because it is apparently really difficult for somebody to explain how to make a pattern and cut it. You don't need the expensive, you know, $1 a foot paper that sewing people use. This is just craft paper, which is fairly cheap and inexpensive, and I have a whole roll of it laying around anyways because I use this for rockets. But basically it involves taking measurements, and part of taking measurements means learning how to take measurements better. So like, you realize that your waistline's not a perfect, you know, it's not the same height from the floor everywhere around your waist. It actually is a little higher in the back and then slopes down a little bit in the front. So your pattern making will take that into account. This area from underneath your belly button around your crotch to where the pants are going to hang in the back is a pretty important measurement, because it determines how long these little cuts need to be. So you'll measure all the way around this little curved part, and if that's too short, they're going to be a little tight in the seat. So not everything can be pulled directly off these simplified versions of how to make a sloper that you find on the internet, and I would like to talk about that stuff, but again, it's kind of boring and not a lot of people are gonna well, I don't know. If they are, I'll do a video on it. Just leave me a comment if you want to see that kind of thing. But one thing you might notice about this is there are horizontal lines drawn on this. So basically, this is my layout area of the house. Okay, so in ancient times, you go to like the castle engineer's office, and you have a little small room somewhere in the castle while it's being built, and basically a flat area of floor to lay out things like steps or blocks or whatever thing needed to be crafted to complete a certain phase of the castle design. And then he could design it on that flat surface. Well, 400 square feet, there's not a whole hell of a lot of room in here. So this is my bed that I'm sitting on, and I basically just pull back all the blankets and pillows and all that, all the fun stuff that I sleep on. And then I've got a nice big flat surface here that's pretty solid, and I lay my little cutting mat down on it, and I'm pretty much ready to go for layout and design work. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to see how these turn out. So the first thing I'm going to do is move these patterns out of the way where they're not going to get accidentally crinkled. So I'm going to lay this out here flat. I'm going to put my pattern on top of it. It's a good idea to kind of pin this down once you have it flat. And basically the pattern includes a front and a back. So I'll do front on this side pattern, and then I'll flip it over and do a piece like that for the other leg. I'll do the same thing with the back. And the other thing about a sloper is these measurements and the way that this pattern is cut, it doesn't include a seam line, so there's no seam allowance on here. And when you sew these together, you're going to have a little bit left over from where the sewing machine actually makes the stitch. So when you cut your pattern, you want to cut like an extra 1/4 to a 1/2 inch all the way around. I'll probably do a 1/2 inch. So I'm basically going to draw out all 4 of these on this fabric. First we pin it. This is basically just to keep the fabric from moving. And I'm going to mark it. And apparently this fabric is slightly stretchy. So, wasn't expecting that, but you know, that'll give me more practice with stretchy things. Now I'm just going to mark all the way around it, about the same distance everywhere. And we're cutting. Alrighty, so that part's done. The patterns are cut out. Save your scraps, because you need to move over here. Because you're going to be using these to test the machine. So this machine is basically set up. What side am I going to be cutting? I didn't think about it You know, the patterns are reversible, so I don't have to have shiny pants. And I can have the soft satiny side in toward my body where it's comfortable. Pull that out and do one of these numbers. So this fabric is a lot thinner than denim. Okay, so I've got this guy set to a 4-inch or a 4mm stitch right now, which I should have already changed. So you see it's kind of, well, I don't know if you can see it, but it's kind of bunching up a little bit. I need to turn this down to 2mm to do my cut. Otherwise it's going to do this all along the jeans. They're going to come out, or the pants, and they're going to come out all weird. With heavier fabrics, you want to use a longer stitch, apparently. I don't know why. I'm not a seamstress. With lighter fabrics, you want to use a shorter stitch to keep this bunching up from happening. So I'm going to try this at 2. And this is why you want to save your scraps, because you want to like kind of test this out before you commit yourself wholly to doing this. My reverse doesn't work still. That's okay, I'll get over it. Ready? Pull that out, and now we have less bunching and a nice solid stitch running all the way down, which is probably way stronger than this fabric actually is. So not going to worry about that. I've got plenty of thread on my spool, and you may notice I'm using black thread. I only have black thread. I've got some white bobbin thread around here somewhere, but yeah. Actually I should throw that in and burn it up on this, but I'm not going to. This seems like a good time to talk about cost. So I just bought 3 pairs of R-Mark pants from, or 3 pairs of work pants from the R-Mark website for $12 a piece. They're on clearance. After shipping, it was like $50-something. So I figure by the time everything's in and I'm ready to cut and do my first set of actual pants based on all this work that I'm doing now, I'm probably going to have $100 at least invested just in materials, because I've already made one of these little muslin mock-ups for the sloper that didn't work out. Craft paper is pretty cheap, but by the time I get to that stage, because I mean, you still, even once you get the sloper right, then you have to design the jeans around it, which includes probably making a mock-up of the actual final product. I don't know if I'm going to do that or not, and then actually buying the material from Ottertex, sewing the material up with expensive thread, and getting it all done. At that point, I should be able to produce them for a reasonably cheap quality, or cheap price, but you know, at that point you're already in, you're sunk. So why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through all this toil? Because you don't realize, like, there's a lot more to making clothes than just the sloper. The sloper pattern's easy. It's 4 pieces of fabric. They're basically sewn together real quick. You try it on, see if it fits, make alterations, make another one with cheap fabric. So that fabric there I got for $1 a yard. The fabric I used on the previous piece, I bought 2 yards for like $5. All this money is basically on mock-ups and design, but I believe that the final product, especially after doing that first sloper mock-up, I can already see, like, clothing material doesn't move the same when it's actually fitted to your form properly as it does when I wear a lot of baggy clothes that are just hanging loose because I don't like tearing them up. But on that same note, they snag on just about everything I walk by because they're hanging loose off my body. I run into other problems. And I have the belief that if I design this with the right fabric, I can have pockets that I can actually put stuff in because they're designed to be pockets instead of, you know, a fashion style accessory add-on to essentially a bare pair of pants. you know, tough material, form fitted to my body. If I were to go out and order a pair of pants like what I'm planning on designing, a generic fit pair would probably run 50 to 80 bucks at least. And that's just for the fabric, the work, the time and energy, the articulated knee, like all the extra sewing involved with what I want to do. If I were to get those fitted where they actually like tailored me up, measured my body, went through this whole process through a tailor, that same pair of pants would probably be $400 to $500. So at the end of the day, this is not a way of saving money. This is a way of making sure I get the pants that I want, that I believe will hold up to every environment that I'm going to throw them at. And once I'm ready to start producing them, I can produce them in 4 or 5 hours, you know, to go from pattern to finished pants, and maybe $10 to $15 worth of materials. And I can just crank these things out and then add a zipper, a button, and a couple snaps. You know, you're looking at a $20 pair of pants that's roughly equivalent to a $400 pair of pants. There's one. Alright, now here comes the fun and annoying part. There's one side, there's the other side. And then I need to sew up this back seam, so these are basically gonna go together like, just kind of guide them on. So whatever side you're working on, that's going to be the inside of your garment, that needs to be the outside showing whenever you run it through the sewing machine. And they actually meet up for a change. How about that? Except that one took a dive. I feel like I went and joined the Navy. I'm going to leave my shirt on the front for a moment to spare you, because these are still a little tight right here in the hips. They're like hugging just a bit too much. And the crotch seam is actually fine. I can move around in these a bit. Despite the fact that they're fitted, like you'll notice, you have the ability to move around. Like I could even tighten up the knee just a tad bit and it would probably be fine. The seams are running straight and normal. Straight and normal. The legs seem to be about the right length. So my waist, like I can tighten this down about an inch, which basically means taking 1/4 inch off the pattern on each piece, or an 1/8 of an inch off each side of each leg. So not something that's exactly super duper critical. And the hips need to definitely go out. So I will be making another pattern and cutting it, but for the moment, like, these are actually pretty freaking comfortable. I wouldn't want to wear them around town, but not bad. Not too bad at all. And of course the leggies down here are nice and loose because I just cut them straight on the pattern. But I can actually pull them on fully assembled and not break anything. I'm going to see you next time. So that's basically the process of sewing up one of these patterns, and the realization that you're going to have to do another one almost immediately as soon as you're done, because you can immediately see like what needs to be altered and what doesn't. And it's a heck of a lot easier on this than it is, you know, when you actually pull them on. Then you know, like, okay, this area needs to be expanded, that area needs to be moved in. Like, you can make those alterations in your head, transfer them directly to the pattern, and then you're good for another round. So I can actually take some more measurements off the actual pants now, as far as where they need to be brought in or brought out, and should be able to go straight to another pattern. Like last time I had to redraw the pattern completely from scratch, but I think I can use what I have now, make the little alterations to it, and then kind of work from there. And then once I've got a pattern that I'm happy with, of course I'll make it out of a more permanent material. Like I'll find a piece of cardboard or a thicker piece of paper, maybe poster board, and just do something that's a little sturdier, and then that'll be my pattern template for all the pants that I need to make. But this is just the first step in the process. So hope you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something. And if you have any other questions about this kind of thing, or you want to see me do a video on some specific part of the process getting to here, let me know. I have a good feeling that pretty soon I'm going to be working on pockets and actually making a pair of pants. Like, even though there's still alterations to be made, I can feel this project moving forward and coming along. So I'm going to stick with it, and I will see you next time.